Good evening, I'm Jeff Koinange, and this is Jeff Koinange Live. Tonight, or rather this morning, Kenyans woke up to some tragic news of 4 terrorists who took over Garissa University, 300 kilometers from Nairobi, and held it under siege for most of the day. At the end of the day, depending on who you listen to, the death toll is somewhere between 147 and 167 dead young Kenyans. On a day like this, which is supposed to be Inspiration Thursday, it's only fair that we switch gears and continue on this same theme of Kenya under siege. Can we get out of this mess we are in right now? I thank Eric and Fred Omondi, who were supposed to be my guest tonight, and they've graciously agreed to step aside for now. My guest tonight, I literally called him 20 minutes ago, happened to be in Nairobi. He's Mombasa Senator Hassan Omar Hassan. He jumped out of his bed and said, "It's a national issue, Jeff. I'm coming." He's in studio with me throughout the next hour, and we'll be discussing the state of security in the country. Senator Hassan Omar Hassan, his Twitter handle is @OmarHassanH. Mine is @Koinange Jeff. The hashtag JKL or Garissa Tax, whatever you choose. Senator, thanks so much for coming.
Thank you, Jeff.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. My Twitter handle is @HassanOmarH.
@HassanOmarH. Got it. @HassanOmarH.
First and foremost,
horrific news.
In fact, it was one of those days that you're gearing up for the holiday, and I think we were also busy almost all day with summoned the anti-corruption commissioners and the CEO, and that's when the news started to trickle in about the veracity of the attacks. So I think it's scuttled everybody. First and foremost, let me take this early opportunity on my behalf, my family, the people of Mombasa, to send my utmost condolences to all the families of the bereaved, those who have lost their loved ones, and to wish a quick recovery to all those who've been injured in this heinous attack.
Indeed.
I think it's one of those sad days. You know, Jeff, it's bad enough to lose one life, but this volume, I think, breaks everybody's heart.
Absolutely.
I noticed the somber mood that we discussed it in the Senate, and people were saying we're getting tired of a discussion after discussion, grandstanding after another. We need action, we need to secure our borders, we need to have security in Kenya that is sustainable. And at that time, I think the figures were standing at something conservatively at about 15. Mm-hmm. It's only at about 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock that they went up to 70. Yeah. And then I had General Kaiseri make the announcement that they now stand at 147.
And they're still mopping up.
Yes, because they say they just declared an end to the operations, and I think by now I think they're still counting whatever fatalities that might have been incurred. Yeah. And I have seen also some fatalities have started coming into Nairobi. Some bodies, he announced the rescue measures that have been put in place. And I think at this point in time, it's only our patriotic duty to support the government, to support the minister in all that they do.
Absolutely.
But I think unlike the other times, we need to take stock in a very serious way this time.
Indeed, take stock. And look, a week ago, British High Commission issued a travel advisory. And they mentioned Garissa County in particular. I spoke to a senior British official earlier this week, and he said, "Jeff, this is no joke. When we issue an advisory of this magnitude, we know, we've seen."
Well, true as it might be, part of this constraints in terms of our security, in terms of the structure of our capacity to handle part of these advisories or these warnings, it's partly on the basis of our perceived alliances with particularly the United Kingdom and the United States. And I think we as Kenyans are performing our citizen duty or our national duty to be able to preserve or protect our borders. And therefore, I think if these advisories were sometimes more specific, if they did actually indicate in the advisories or in the intelligence exchanges that it was going to be Garissa University campus of Moi University, then I think it will be easier to secure it.
But that's too easy to say, though. I mean, it did say Garissa County.
Garissa County there is, I'm not trying to justify whatever happened or the laxity on the part of government, but Garissa County is an expansive county. So I think sometimes, and then I think With due fairness, I have seen a bit of a lull. I wanted to believe also that bit of a lull from the last Mandela 2 to this attack has been also on the basis that our security services must have been doing something right at that point in time.
Yeah.
But they waited for all our celebrations to end. After the Mandela 2, we are also outraged. We decided to have the security laws amendment, some of which I believe the coalition challenged in court. And after that, we appointed a new Minister for Interior. After that, we then appointed an IG. Then immediately last week, the president was, last Thursday, just at about the same time, the president was saying how the state of the nation is strong. Yeah, and yet they strike us at that point.
Which brings me to my question, Senator. Do you think Al-Shabaab is watching our every move? It seems like they are. They wait for an IG to be appointed. They wait for a CS to be appointed. They wait till the day before Good Friday. The timing of all this is not coincidental.
In fact, for me, I'm starting to draw a pattern. You know, usually the Shabab attacks on Sundays. This time around, those was on Thursday. I think they wanted to create a somber mood, like getting into this very solemn festivities. If you look at the structure of their cells, they are quite evident. In the West Gate, they say there are about 4 to 5 attackers. It is consistent with these attacks. So I think they must be somewhere. If they have cable TV, they must be somewhere laughing, because the whole morning the president was grandstanding and saying all these nice things, all these brave things, how as a nation we are strong, we are undeterred. In the afternoon, the National Assembly adjourns its sittings to discuss this, and it even extends its time of debate. The Senate is doing the same thing. And this is a script over and over and over. It's becoming tiresome. I remember one of the more senior senators, Gigi Kariuki, keeps saying that we must end this chorus. It must end somewhere. And I think I agree with him that I think it's far too easy to stand in Nairobi in the secure floors of the Senate and say how this nation is going to be undeterred or in the secure grounds of State House. And yet we know for a fact we are losing a countrymen by the day who are very vulnerable, because we are under certain protections that give us the confidence and audacity to make this statement.
Absolutely. Senator, can you imagine for a moment if you are one of the parents of one of the kids who've been killed? You've raised your child, taken them to university. This is your future breadwinner.
I think it's difficult to imagine what is going on through all those parents, those who have already confirmed that their kids are dead. Their only guilt, collective guilt, was to be in Garissa at the wrong time, because they were pursuing an education. And I think it's a very noble thing to pursue an education. You can imagine those who are still in limbo as to the certainty of their kids. You can imagine the trauma of the students. I could see it in their faces. Trauma was all written. I remember watching one of the clips, and one of the journalists is asking, please speak to us, asking some of the survivors. One of them looked like, are you serious? And I think it's traumatizing. You know, people giving you episodes about how they were running away from gunfire. So it's just a miraculously that they were able to survive. And I think these episodes means also we need to start changing our strategies. We need to start evolving. We need to start, you know, we said it today in the Senate. You know, when Goodluck was being warned that the audacity of the Boko Haram was such that it was undermining national security and waning public confidence in the presidency and the government, they took it for granted that that they could solve this problem. I think it now needs a more negotiated settlement. If you look at the issues that surrounded the Nigerian elections, from all commentaries, are consistent to security and corruption. Yeah. And I think security will be a key concern. And I think even as a coalition, even as Secretary General of a coalition party within the CORD coalition, who I believe I can represent the CORD position in a broader sense, we're still very committed to see which areas of partnership we can strengthen with the government to ensure we secure our borders and secure our counties. It helps me in no practical way for Mombasa beach hotels to be closing down, for our economy to be battered. But I also wish that the Western countries can be more supportive to the Kenyan people and the Kenyan in our entirety, in our security, collective security partnership. It's far too easy for us to keep saying we have won and we have won and we have won. But I think we need to invest more energies and true comradeship to ensure that we broaden that partnership against against terrorism.
Yeah, you mentioned corruption a moment ago, and this thought keeps coming back to people's minds over and over again. How do these terrorists come through? How are they allowed through? Is it the corruption level? Is it them bribing officials once they cross the borders? How are they allowed to come through and settle? I mean, obviously they've been on the ground for a while before they're activated.
It's difficult to tell who a terrorist is. You know, it just looks like any ordinary Jeff Koinange or Hassan Omar. Depends on your own persona. If you look at Mohammed Atta, the architect of the 9/11, he was living like an ordinary citizen, living very well with his neighbors. Little did anybody know what was up his sleeve. So I think that's why it's difficult to we're against profiling of an entire or stereotyping of an entire group of people or community or religion. So you need to have an intelligence guided kind of strategy. And yes, it means that we track these cells with a lot of keenness. We track some of the people who maybe might be on our lists of surveillance, and we broaden our surveillance on individuals who we think could be some of the perpetrators of these kinds of recruitment drives. Because I think the terrorists sneak in, probably not carrying all these arms. I don't think they sneak in with all these ammunitions already clad on them. They're probably just sneak in with their normal garb. And then they get these types of equipment locally and be able to execute part of these atrocious crimes. Yeah. So I don't think these ideas I'm hearing about building a wall. A wall cannot stop an idea, because if you look at the manifestation of terrorism, it is about first having a narrative that feeds on the rotten society, the humiliation, issues around marginalization, exclusion, injustices, iniquities. That's part of the narrative that is used. Our community, our religion, our people, our areas, our regions. And then on the basis of that, it radicalizes you. So then radicalization then manifests itself into violent extremism. So violent extremism now is where somebody now takes to these types of actions. So some of them are readily in the country because they've been radicalized by situations or circumstances which we have found we've not had a counter narrative and a soft strategy to pursue and decimate that type of idea.
Absolutely.
So therefore we've already become a ready market for people to radicalize our young people, and then in that regard also now carry out some of these atrocious crimes.
Yeah, are you worried about your own county, Senator? Because look, Mombasa County stretches up and down the coast. Tourism is all but dead. We were all hoping for a revival later this year. That's not going to happen now. Are you worried about your county?
I'm worried about my county and Kenya, the coast region in Kenya in general. I mean, I feel as much pain for Garissa County, Mandera County. It's only being a Kenyan that you will know the pain, because we are interconnected. If Garissa does not do well, Mombasa cannot do well. If Mombasa does not do well, it puts pressure on Nairobi. But Nairobi will definitely not do as well. So I think we are counties that are interdependent on one another. We are linked, but umbilically. We cannot divorce one another from each other. So if people are saying there's an attack in Kenya, they're not necessarily saying there's an attack in Garissa. And based on that, the international media continues to feed onto the narrative that Kenya is not safe. So therefore, I'm worried for the entire country. But more so when I see the young people who were even earning jobs either directly or indirectly through tourism, then the economy starts to crash. That's a burden upon us. We are the first port of call. People come to ask us, what are you doing? What are you doing? Yes, you cannot continually say security is a responsibility of the national government. Yeah. So that's why we're asking the national government to climb down and be able to have a broader partnership in terms of security. They need to effect the county policing authorities so that they can be effective partnership where governors and other elected leaders can share some thought in terms of managing the security of the nation. And I think it's everybody's responsibility.
Absolutely. This brings to thought a movie I watch often because it brings, there's some great lines in it. Black Hawk Down, the story of the U.S. mission in Somalia and
Restore Hope.
Correct, Operation Restore Hope. And the moment one of the helicopters is shot out of the sky by General Aidid's forces, then the general turns to his people and he says, "We just lost the initiative." Have we lost the initiative now with Al-Shabaab?
I think it's not lost, because if we give up at this point, then we surrender to the fact that we must live in this state of fear and insecurity. I think we need to stabilize Somalia. It's our principal responsibility as a neighbor, because it has a direct impact. I think there's almost a tradition in international practice that when you border a country, you try not to participate in peacekeeping, because then there's the trickle-down effect. But what people's argument is that Ethiopia does the same, and yet Ethiopia doesn't experience the levels of insecurity that we do. So I think what happens is we must also have a strategy that is both internal and a strategy that is regional. I think Kenya has lost quite its moral space that the former President Moi had, because President Moi remained a neutral arbiter in the crisis in the region. He appeared fairly neutral, though he wasn't particularly in South Sudan, but on the issue of Somalia, he was fairly neutral. I think we have allowed ourselves also here in Kenya to play into the dynamics of the clan politics, and then having this vision of a buffer zone, or creating some kind of a security zone that creates a certain meaning. Many insinuations that have been made about where Kenya might have messed up its strategy.
Yeah.
So I think we need to now retrace that strategy back. We need to, first and foremost, internally, we need to use both soft and hard power. Soft power in terms of decimating the narrative of radicalization. We need to attack the factors that lead to radicalization, marginalization, equity, social justice, being able to provide a sense of hope for people, for those who might be recruited into these types of ranks, that this nation still offers you the promise.
Is one of those strategies leaving Somalia altogether? Should KDF withdraw? Is that a strategy?
You have to realize I'm also the Secretary General, as I said, of the Wiper Party. And I share in the CORD position. I believe it is high time we packed and left. And people think we're just saying that Karange pulls out the forces tomorrow. We know that's stupid. I think we have sufficient intellect to know what it means when you have a phased withdrawal. And I say you need to. Finally, the principal responsibility for Somalia rests with the Somali people. It is not Kenyans, it is not Burundians, it is not Ugandans. It has to be principally the Somali people, and then they need to care for that destiny. And a lot of Somalis, I believe, care for that destiny. So the first principal area of attack should be to try and build institutions. The Somali National Army will be the principal defender of Somali's integrity and to suppress any possibility of terrorism. So you need to, rather than spend so much money feeding the African forces and trying to build on those forces, AMISOM, you need to start training and retooling the Somali National Army to be able to build its capacity to take over position, and then you lead to a process of a phased withdrawal. And that's why everybody says you need to pull back the troops to the Kenyan border, even if it means that the Kenyan border on the side of Somalia, so that you're able to cut off, that possible incursions into the Kenyan territory where they violate our integrity and the lives of our people. So I think whether we like it or not, finally they must submit to the fact that countries have had to do this to survive. America has had to withdraw from Iraq. Kenya's military budget is a small little drop in the ocean of the U.S. budget on military. We are consumers of military hardware. They are innovators of military hardware. They have the creme de la creme of military hardware. Yet they finally felt that we needed to pull back so that we secure the stability and the security of our own country. We need to have less pressure on our budgets, because eventually people are going to ask about the economy, for those things also matter domestically. So what happens is, it's not cowardice, it is just being practical, it's about being pragmatic. So the CORD position that we need to pull back our forces is still something that if Uhuru Kenyatta does not do it, eventually that will be an issue that will be very costly for him in the election. The next president will do it.
It keeps coming to haunt us, keeps coming back and biting us in the you-know-what, Senator. I want to take a break, come back. Talk about that wall you mentioned. How do you build it? Has a wall ever worked? Did the Berlin Wall work? Did the Israeli wall work? And how much will that wall cost? Someone was saying something like 68 billion shillings or something.
Somebody has taken a contract there.
Ridiculous amount. Anyway, let's talk more about that. And also, what more can be done? What can we do as citizens to repel, to avoid, to avert catastrophes like today? Let's take a break. At Hassan Omar H.
Yes.
At Koinange Jeff, the hashtag JKL, Garissa attacks, campus siege, you name it. We're talking about a very serious situation that happened on this eve of Good Friday that's literally shot us in the heart. The attacks in Garissa University, that the death toll now is somewhere between 147 and 167. Unbelievable amounts. Worst attack since the U.S. embassy bombing in 1998, where more than 220 people were killed. Horrific, horrific day in our history. JKL, we'll take a break, come back, plenty more with the Senator from Mombasa, Hassan Omar in a moment. Stay with us.